In Fighters for Peace, our members are mainly male ex-combatants, but we have also a few women who were ex-combatants. And we felt that we should work on the topic of masculinity in a way or another. And talking to women's organizations who I know they had addressed men, I realized that when they were talking about masculinity, it was always connected to gender-based violence or to domestic abuse and anger management. Violent perceptions of masculinities, they drive people, especially men, but also women, into conflict, into war? Or is it the system in Lebanon, in the Middle East we're living in, the political leadership, which is very patriarchal, the religious leadership, which, I mean, look around at the religions that you have, and many of those leaders, political and religious leaders, were at some point involved in violence, were at some point involved in the civil war. So is it this kind of bigger systems that influence people to have a violent perception of masculinity, which leads them then to participate in a conflict or in a war? So what we also wanted to explore in this project is how perceptions of masculinities can shift over time. So for example, our male ex-combatants, many of them were very young when they entered the war. So we want to make them reflect how they perceived what makes an ideal man as a boy, as a teenager, as a young fighter, but then also later on after the war, dropping out of war, for example, creating a family, becoming a father, entering a profession, becoming a teacher or whatever, and a leader in peace building. So we want to explore all these kind of biographies and how perceptions of masculinities have changed accordingly to their stories of change as well. I think it's wrong or short-sighted to think that men should be automatically associated with violence just because of their gender. No, women can be also very violent and they have a different gender. Women are not automatically peace builders, you know. So all human beings have both portions inside them. They have a violent portion inside them, they have a peaceful portion. They have masculine traits, they have feminine traits. The question is what you bring to life from within your own personality. So this is one of the messages that we have with this project, and that we also want to transport to youth. You can be a man, you can have an important social status without being violent. We brought together men and women in 2 focus group meetings where basically they had a safe space to talk and to share, what do they know about masculinity, what do they know about violence, what do they know about peace, what do they know about personal traits, what do they know about psychological factors that can influence you in a way or another. The next step would be to explore more the personal stories, the biographies of people, of both men and women, and how perceptions of gender and especially perceptions of masculinity have changed for their own personal lives over time. You're a boy, you have to be tough, don't cry, boys don't cry. So was it something like this, these kind of messages that of course shape your perception of masculinity from early childhood on? So they also had experiences of loss and grief, but were they allowed to express these feelings? Were they allowed to cry? Were they allowed to grieve or not? We want them to transport these reflections and maybe these new perceptions of masculinity to the public, to young people, to boys, to young adults, to support them, you know, in a more varied and diverse perception of masculinity.